All right, it looks like we are up and running. We're missing David Lumsden. It looks like Dan Mason got kicked off, but is trying to get back on. There's David. Dan, it looks like he's on, so let's go ahead and proceed. We will, please note, well, first of all, I'll call to order the meeting of the Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation Commission, the May 2021 meeting. Becky, would you note that we have a quorum? We're missing Mr. Green, but otherwise we have a quorum. We do have a fairly lengthy agenda, and one in particular is going to take some time, the last one on our agenda. So let's try to be as efficient and as effective as we can with our time. First item of business is review of the minutes from our last meeting. Members of the commission, you've had a chance to review those. What's your pleasure?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Well, let's move right into our appropriateness review. We have one left over from last month. That's a request of Daniel and Belinda Imwalle for 25 Coral Avenue for a new fence. David, could you promote the Imwalles?
Yes, Daniel is coming up now.
All right. Well, Mr. Imwalle, I assume you can hear us.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. We've all had a chance to review your application. We'll give you a chance to say a bit of an introduction, and then we'll go into our discussion.
Sure. Yeah. So we've been planning to have a privacy fence installed in our property for about a year or so now. We've really been trying to get a company that squared away to do it. And when we finally landed on one, we wanted to do a 6-foot privacy fence and then a 4-foot fence. The privacy fence would be 6 feet. The 4-foot fence would then go along the side of the property. And I think there was one little thing that we had to change in the design, which was that part of the privacy fence extended past the rear wall of our house. And I think in accordance with the village, we had that redrawn so that it stops at the end of the back of our house. And that's pretty much all there is to it.
All right. And do we have there's the details. I'm looking at the electronic images, and you're going with the PVC material?
That's correct.
All right. Members of the commission, questions, comments? Motions?
I think since it meets the ordinances as far as size and behind the house and such, and it's a nice design, the picket fence and the privacy fence, I'd make a motion to approve as submitted.
Okay. Is there a second? Well, if somebody's talking, I can't hear. A second. Well, I tell you what, it's out of my ordinary course of business, but to keep things moving, I'll second the motion. Any further discussion, members of the commission? David, was there anybody who wished to speak on this particular item besides Mr. Imwalle? David, you're freezing up. All right. I think he would have told me if there was anybody who wanted to speak. Let's move on to a vote on the motion. We have a motion plus my second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Mr. Imwalle, if you wouldn't mind staying in touch with Mr. Lumsden for next steps after there.
Okay. And do we need to stay on the meeting for the rest of the time here, or are we good to go for now?
You're good to go. You're welcome to stay, but you're good to go.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Moving on to new business. I'm going to talk slowly because David's going to have to promote the applicant, and I can't do that. But by way of introduction, it's the request of Chuck and Bobbie Jo Ehlers, 28 Oak Street, for driveway improvements.
If you need me to, I can allow them to talk while David's getting back on.
Yeah, let me see if we have anybody. Yeah, Bobbie Jo Ehlers is in the queue. Would you
Okay.
mind promoting her?
Yep, I will right now.
All right, thanks. Bobbie Jo, you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can, and you know how we operate. We take as little or as much comment as you need, and I think this is an application that demands little comment.
We hope it's straightforward, but I'm happy to answer any questions. We're just looking at using an asphalt or concrete on an existing driveway structure, and we wanted to seek approval for those options.
Yeah, it's a gravel drive now between two curbs. Is that correct, Bobbie Jo?
Yeah. Yes.
And will you be keeping the curbs, just paving in between them?
Well, I think that depends on which material we go with. There's some advantages to replacing or pulling out the curbs, and also to keeping them. So we haven't determined that yet.
Okay. All right, members of the commission, questions, comments,
I
motions?
don't think there's really any need for any questions or comments. It barely needs our approval, I believe. They're just changing the material from gravel to either asphalt or concrete, so I move for approval.
All right, motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Dan. Motion and second, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Bobbie Jo. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see. All right, moving right along. We have the request of Maggie Stetz and Austin Sapp at 795 Congress for a new fence. David Lumsden is texting me that his internet went down and he'll try to join us shortly. So Mr. Hodges, let me see if there's somebody. Maggie Stetz looks like she's on the line. Could you promote her?
I will.
Thank you. Ms. Stetz, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you guys hear us? It's both myself and Austin is here with me.
Yes, we can. You've seen a little taste of how we operate. We give the applicant an opportunity to describe the application and we'll take it from there.
Sure, absolutely. So we've been in Glendale for about a month and a half now, and we're loving it so much, but we want to respect the historical district and the aspects that you guys require. Obviously, we just want to add a privacy fence for the backyard, really for our dogs and any potential kids that we may have in the future while we live here. So just a 6-foot wooden privacy fence. We would have, the treated wood. We would have the finished side facing outwards, just as David had suggested. And we would add in a shorter, like 4-foot gate that would allow us to obviously access the fenced in area. So it would be all in the backyard, actually starting at the front of our garage, which is vastly behind where the end of our home is. So no side structure, all would be in the exterior portion of our property. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, ma'am. Members of the commission, questions, comments, motions?
Maggie, this is Dan Mazum. When you were explaining the project, you said 4-foot fence, but on your application, it shows that blue highlighted area as a 3-foot fence. Is it 3 or 4?
I believe it's actually 3 foot. I think I misspoke. I apologize.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Sure. No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Anyone else on the commission? Is there a motion?
Question.
Oh, go ahead,
I
Beth.
have a question. Is there a requirement for this to be something like 50% transparent or something?
I can answer that. Our fence code requires fences in the side and front yards to be 50% open, meaning if for instance, there's a 2-inch board, there would need to be a 2-inch gap. In the rear yard, there is no such requirement. the rear yard can be completely closed as these privacy fences are.
Thank you, David. Your memory's better than mine. Okay, I move approval.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Leslie, I didn't quite hear. Was that a second from Leslie?
Yes, it was a second.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we have motion second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Stett.
Thank you.
If you stay in touch with Mr. Lumsden, he'll take you through the next steps.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
All righty. Moving on, the request, our next request is that of Jackie Klein at 45 South Lake for window replacement. Oh, excuse me, I skipped over Troy. I'm sorry. It's Richard and Nancy Broman at 1054 North Troy for gutter replacement. Are the Bromans or Bremsons? Excuse my mispronunciation. Are they available, David?
Yes, they should be coming up here shortly.
Okay. Richard, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. If you could correct me, and then we'll let you take it from there. And you're still on mute, sir.
I have two attendees who have called into the meeting. I'm going to attempt to find out if either of those folks are Richard.
Yeah. David, why don't you call him by his proper name if you know the pronunciation? Maybe he thought I was talking about
Breamson, maybe, but that's a.
Hello.
Yes, is this Richard?
This is Nancy Bromson. We were having trouble. We are not together. We were trying to be together at home. I am on a cell phone away from home. My husband's at home trying to get on the computer, but we're thinking our computer doesn't have audio on it. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear him. He said he saw you guys. He was trying to get audio.
Yeah, he's on mute as far as we can tell. But
okay.
This is Nancy then?
Yeah, this is Nancy. I'm his wife.
Okay. Well, we can proceed with you if you feel comfortable.
Sure.
And
sure. Go ahead.
if you've heard how we operate, we let the applicant give an introduction to the request, and then the planning commission members who've all seen your materials will take it from there.
Okay, because I just joined in. I couldn't figure out how to even get this far. So I
you're doing good.
Literally tuned in when you said, oh, you were going on to somebody's fence and you said, oops, forgot the Bromson. So I'm not sure. This is the first time we've ever done this.
Sure. Well, it looks like it's a pretty fairly routine gutter replacement with the gutter topper of some sort. Is that in essence what you're proposing?
Right. And it'll look just like normal gutters from the ground. And the thing is, right now, the way the gutters are, they drip right literally on the house into the basement, and they're causing water leakage in the basement. These gutters will look, from the ground, they're going to look the same if there's a concern about the aesthetics from the street, but they're going to be phenomenal gutters functionally for our home to keep it looking nice and, keep the water out of it. So we would really appreciate if, you all could approve it so that we could go ahead and get this done. And they're very good gutters. They have like lifetime warranty. They're not going to fall apart and rust and look horrible.
Okay.
As I understand, you're just replacing 4-inch gutters with 6-inch gutters, correct?
I believe that's it. I don't have the exact papers. Rick had those, but I think that was it. These are a little bit wider, possibly.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, comments, members of the commission? Is there a motion?
Come on, Bob.
Okay, if you really want me to, I'll move that we approve the application, as long as it's just 4-inch to 6-inch gutters and they're not adding or taking away anything. It's just the same plan of gutters, just going with larger gutters.
Second.
And I suppose larger downspouts too, although that wasn't mentioned.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Yes, I seconded.
All right. Okay, very good. Motion and second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Bromsen. If you would stay in
Thank you all.
touch with Mr. Lumsden, he'll take you through the next steps.
Okay, thank you all very
All
much.
right.
Appreciate
Have a good night
the
now.
vote.
All righty.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Moving on to the next request, it's of Jackie Klein at 45 South Lake for window replacement. David, would you promote Jackie Klein?
She's coming up here shortly.
Okay. Ms. Klein, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. We
Okay,
can.
great.
So you've seen or heard at least how we operate. We give the applicant an opportunity to introduce their request, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. Okay, so I'm actually the owner's representative. She found this house, and the little baby needs some love. I think the owner was in the house previously for, I think the neighbor told me, like at least 50 years, and there's a lot of work that needs to get done on this house. So we're being very careful with how we spend money. And I'm a little unclear on kind of the guidelines of the windows in the neighborhood. I'm seeing a lot of vinyl, but from what I can tell on the website, vinyl is not preferred. But I guess I just need to hear from you guys what the preference is. We're proposing vinyl just because of how much work needs to be done to this house to get it back to its former glory. We're just replacing like for like, same sizes. We did want to add, if it's possible, kind of just a center mullion to kind of bring a little more character to the house. And I'm also struggling to figure out what the architectural style of the house is. It feels just very American farmhouse. So I feel like that style of window would look really great on this house and hopefully bring it back to its former glory, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, and white for white as well.
Now you realize if you add a center mullion, it has to be true divided light or simulated divided light. So the mullion has to be on the inside, on the outside of the glass, on the exterior and the interior. It has to be outside the glass.
Yes, I did see that.
Okay.
Yeah, I assume that would be more costly than the product that you're offering. I mean,
so they actually said that they'll give that to us. The window guy is a friend of the owners and he feels good about this project and wants to help us. And he said, I'll just throw it in there.
Okay, I think I personally would want to see some product information to confirm what type of mullion that would, or muntin that would be.
Sure. I think it's not a standard option in the window series that I sent you guys. You do have the information on the windows. So I need to get them to send me, I mean, I have the picture of what that window looks like with the center button, but I can see if they can send me an actual brochure with that.
Well, the product information does under optional features list interior and exterior SDL, which is simulated divided light packages.
Yeah, no, I'm saying
So that's encouraging.
Design, the style is not a standard style for just the single vertical mullion.
Right. the guidelines, the zoning code is really not very specific about what kind of windows that we should approve. It refers to windows of neighboring properties. The guidelines do say do not use aluminum or vinyl windows, but we have approved both of those, especially since wood windows are not of the same quality wood as they used to be.
Sure.
That said, there are different qualities of vinyl windows out there, and these I noticed have bevel joints, not butt joints, and I'm concerned about the profile of the window as well, and I wonder if the owner would be open to considering a different product, even a different vinyl product. And I know Mr. Corus on our commission also is very knowledgeable about windows.
Sure.
Geldwen, I believe, is one that we have approved that has a fairly good historic appearance.
Yes, and Simonton also has a good profile.
Okay.
I would like to make a comment that
I need to reference with those guys.
Say that again, ma'am.
Is there a specific series I need to reference with those companies?
Beth,
Or
did you
do I
have
just need to tell them?
I think she asked for a specific series.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure that one would be more appropriate than another, but I'm not that familiar to be able to quote what series it would be.
So your preference is not the bevel joints, though?
Right. Something that has butt joints like a historic window would have.
Okay.
And I can provide information to you through David Lumsden that could help you find an acceptable product.
Okay.
another item is on the photos of the existing house, on the front elevation, it appears that those windows may be original, just from the style of them. And the texture of the glass is kind of, looks like there's slight wave feature to it. So I wouldn't necessarily insist on any kind of muntin in the top window or even the bottom if that's truly the original window in the home. I mean, it adds an element of character, but again, it's not the original style. So
that's interesting, Dan. I noticed that there are whatever ones with lugs on the upper sashes. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, because they could be replacements, but this house is a vernacular style house, and I would need to look up what the date is.
Sure.
I'll do that right now.
Yeah, I mean, the windows that are there, they're obviously wood. They are rotted. They are painted shut. I had the same guy come out and look at just restoring the windows, and he can do it. He's just, at that point, he's like, yeah, these are like the most inefficient windows you could have, though. So he highly recommended replacing them. He restores a lot of windows. It's just, he's like, I don't know why anybody would want to keep these, though.
Well, they, from the example that was submitted, the photo that was, it looks like the bottom rails and the sills are pretty rotted out. So I don't think anybody's arguing that you have to keep the existing windows.
Sure. Yeah.
The Ohio Historic Inventory form for this house says it was built in 1866. So, you know, homes of that period could have had 2/2 windows. That's what I mean by that is each sash is divided by a muntin into 2 panes of glass. So maybe it would be good to take another month to consider this more fully, and the option for 2/2 versus 1/1, and
My
a better
guess is that-
looking window.
My guess is that 2/2 probably would be appropriate considering the age, because glass was very expensive then, and they usually had smaller panes rather than larger panes.
And it is a simple vernacular home.
All right. Well, our rules do allow us an extra month to consider, to pass on these types of requests. So, Ms. Klein, do you understand which way the conversation is going?
I think so. I'm clear about, I'll wait to see information from you guys on Geldwin, or the other, I think you said Simonton, the other manufacturer. I'll wait for information on that, but I'm a little unclear on the style. If I should just keep no mullion, or we should do 1 mullion.
I think it's an option to do the center muntin if the owner wants, but I think, you know, there's going to be a cost factor also, wouldn't there, Bob?
Yes, there would. And personally, I think it'd look nicer with the center, but there would be a cost factor. I would approve it either way, as long as the window profile is acceptable.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
Okay, so the consensus is we'd probably approve the window replacement, but we'd like to see a little more detail, a different product perhaps.
Sure. I mean, I guess the only concern is that some of these windows are 12 weeks out. And we're trying to get the owner in here as soon as possible. So I don't know how quickly, I guess, you know, if I have to wait another month,
Well,
then add 12 weeks to that, you know?
That's true, but these windows are going to be there a long time.
Right.
And it's a big investment, so you want to get it right.
Right.
Okay. Is that a form of a motion, Beth? Defer action?
Yes, please.
All right, motion from Beth. Bob, that's your second?
Yes.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Ms. Klein, thank you for your time. We will look for your input next month.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving now to the last request for appropriateness. It's a request of John and Amy Wagner at 63 Washington for an addition to the home. David, are the Wagners available? Could you promote them?
I'm sorry, I'm having nonstop internet issues this entire meeting. Who are we looking to promote?
Wagner, the last request on Washington Avenue.
Yes, 1 second.
And just for the record, this is Dan Mazum. I help them with the design to pull their ideas onto paper. So I'm going to recuse myself from any kind of voting, but if there's any questions that I could assist with that John or Amy are not able to answer, I could help out. So just to let everybody know.
All right.
I'm going to ask Matthew with ICRC to go. I'm going to ask Matthew with ICRC to go ahead and promote the Wagners.
Yep. I can do that for you.
So I'm not a co-host.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could do that for you. Sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault. I keep dropping in and out.
I got you.
David, you need to ask for a raise to get better internet.
I'm about to go to Panera.
Hey now.
All right. I see Ms. Wagner. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Wagner. You've perhaps heard how we operate. We allow the applicant to give a description of the project, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Can you hear?
Yeah, and keep in mind we've all had a chance to review your plan, so we're poised and ready to go.
Okay. So I'll just make it short and sweet. So John has been here since '97, and then I moved in shortly before we got married. So we really like Glendale as a community. We just have outgrown the house. So we need some more space.
Okay. Oh, very good. And again, we've seen the plans. I'll just turn it over to the commission, let them run the discussion. We'll go from there.
Are these plans available to show on the screen? It's not ringing a bell with me.
I will do my very best. It's very possible, though, that I will get kicked out of the meeting by my internet, but I will try to put them up.
Okay, thanks.
If David can't, I might be able to. I've got the plans up on my second screen. Any luck, David?
Yeah, I'm almost there.
Tom, is there any particular plan that you want to see? Front elevation, I suppose.
I just don't remember seeing any. Or is this the one that came through late?
Right, it is.
I didn't look at them. So basically all of them.
I'll just comment that this is a small vernacular home. The auditor says it was built in 1900, but the auditor usually says 1900 when they don't know. You know, everything they don't know is 1900. Oh, it's old. So it looks to me like it started out in life as a symmetrical front gable bungalow, and that it's had an addition before.
Correct.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
So
Okay.
it has an addition on one side, and this new addition would essentially balance the existing addition.
Yes.
And the house seems to be crying out for that, actually.
Yes, please.
And
is there a front elevation picture to look at?
There is, David. There it is. There on their feet on the bottom right, Tom is existing.
Got it.
And what
Okay.
he's highlighted
looks
is
good.
proposed.
All right. Looks balanced and it looks good. You're right, Beth. Thank you.
Go ahead, Beth.
Well, so this house has been through a lot of changes, and right now it's got vertical boards on the front under the porch.
Right.
And you know, like, I don't know, 10 years ago at least, it was the whole thing was re-sided in vertical boards. And then the question is, what is the siding on the wings now, on the exterior now? Is it vinyl or aluminum?
Yes.
Yes, vinyl.
Okay. And so you want to put some kind of stone facing over those vertical boards, or what? Are you going to take off the wood boards and?
Yes.
Yes.
The cedar's going to go away and the stone's going to replace it.
Okay. And is this like cultured stone that you're going to use? It's not stucco,
More
is
like
it?
a river rock. I don't
Okay.
know how to pronounce it. Like
But it's not what we call permastone, which is a molded stucco product.
Correct. I think this will be like a siding type.
You guys you submitted a sample, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that should be in the queue also, I think.
I submitted samples of the possible stone. There we go.
Okay. Well, it's a nice color and texture. I know you submitted sample photos of other houses that had stone or appeared to have stone on them.
Yeah.
One is a bungalow on Sharon, which looks to me like it's permastone and not real stone. I don't know. I didn't look at it closely. The other one is a Tudor brick cottage. And Tudor often did have some stone mixed with brick. So, but I'm a little hesitant on adding it to the front of this house because this house never would have had stone on it. It's not of a period or style that would have a stone facade.
And
It's
Beth,
a
just
wood
to-
frame. It's a wood frame house.
Yeah. Beth, just to piggyback on that a bit, I think the photo examples that were submitted are of houses that are not in the historic district. So we wouldn't have had any of the control over it at that point because of that
Okay.
reason.
It's actually just showing the two different
Building materials.
building materials
Oh, okay.
versus having one style throughout the whole house. So
And I think you guys submitted photos of those too, just for example, just for
Yes,
reference.
I submitted siding and roof, possible colors of roofing. And I do believe some of the homes are within the historic district.
That one that's on the screen now, that's at the corner summit. And Sharon, I'm fairly confident that's out of the district.
Okay. And obviously the line's better than I do, but
Yeah. Beth, do you have an alternative suggestion for the stone? I mean, that's just, it's not an architectural feature. I mean, it's just a
Well,
cosmetic.
the alternative would be to treat it like a wood frame cottage and have continue the siding across the front.
And this is just off the top of my head, but what do you think of shakes in that area instead of stone?
well, we were using the shake in the peak.
Well, that would sort of tie it together, I think.
That actually sounds like a good compromise.
yeah, there's
So if you guys
I
could
know
look at the-
I also did not like the stone when I
Okay.
saw the picture. I didn't have the knowledge that Beth has as far as the age of the house and the style. It would or would not have had stone, but I did not personally care for it when I saw it in there. I think the shakes going with the gable would be a much nicer look.
if everyone looks at the detail right above that, number 3 in the center of the page. Scan over a little. That's the existing elevation on the side. And as you can see right to the left of the porch, there's shake there. So that home, I believe, originally had shake on it.
Yes.
Mhm.
So there's
Uh-huh.
remnants of what is there. So that's part of the reason that John and Amy wanted to reuse that element on the gable. They really liked that element. So, and then above that elevation, so detail number 4 is the proposed side elevation. So they've continued their siding across. So on the new side, so in turn removing the remainder of that shake because that's where the addition would go.
Yeah,
That's the history of that.
I see
It'd
that.
it'd be wonderful to return to shakes,
Yeah, I
the
think
whole
so.
thing.
But if you're not
But-
going to do that, at least
No, and the siding
Like
exists
on the front.
already. Right.
I think we'd be willing to do it on the front.
Okay. What kind of windows are you proposing?
So actually, one of the existing windows will be moved to the addition, and then windows, hopefully, exactly like what we've got, but in line with what we have now.
vinyl.
what do you have now?
They're vinyl.
Can you match them?
I think so. It'd be, I don't think it would be, you wouldn't catch it. I wouldn't think, because it's a window I'm sure you can still buy today.
Okay, in the interest of time, I move that we approve this application with the substitution of hardy plank shakes on the front under the porch.
Okay.
And no stone instead of the
No
stone.
stone.
In place of the stone, yes.
Okay.
And I think we should give them the option of hardy plank or real shakes if they want the real shakes there.
Oh, well, absolutely.
Okay. All right. That's
Hardy
part of the
plank
motion.
or wood shakes in place of the stone on the front.
And the windows are to match the existing.
Yes, thank you,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
And yep, that's it.
Right. Bob, is that a form of a second, Bob?
Yes, it is.
All right, thanks.
With an assist.
Any further discussion, members of the commission? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
It's gonna
Opposed?
look much better when you're done.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, the Wagners.
All right.
Stay in touch, please, with Mr. Lumsden. He'll take you to the next steps.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's move on, David, to our next request, and that's the continuation of the conditional use application hearing. We'll begin with hearing once again from the applicant. The way we left it last month was that the applicant had some homework to do. They've done that homework and submitted some additional materials. So we'll let them give a summary of their findings in that regard. Please do keep it brief. It looks like we have quite a bit of number of people who are still wanting to speak. In fact, I think, David, we have as many as 5 people who want to speak. I'm proposing that we set a time limit of 3 minutes for those persons as well, because we do have a hard stop at 7 o'clock because council has their meeting on this very channel. So David, would you promote the applicant? Are you there? Oh, okay. There's Mr. Dellinger.
Hi, Mark Hutton is going to give a brief summary of the conditional use proposal information that we sent to you, just so it's fresh, and we'll be available to answer any questions.
Yeah. David, would you promote Mr. Hutton? There he is. Mr. Hutton, you're it.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Good evening to the council. Real briefly, everyone understands we're looking at our proposal for a conditional use at 42 Washington Avenue. And I just want to briefly summarize where we are. Our understanding is that there are 3 criteria to establish an acceptable conditional use. Number 1 is the impact on the neighborhood. We believe that the impact on the neighborhood will be very positive. First of all, we're utilizing a blighted and hazardous vacant building that's currently in the neighborhood. The home will be very quiet and consistent with other single family residences, as we've proven with our other home that we have in the similar category in Loveland. Some concerns potentially are in regarding property values. And I included for the council a study titled, quote, "The Question of Property Values." And one excerpt from that says, quote, "In addition to those 31 studies which found no significant negative impact, 6 additional studies suggest that not only do community-based facilities have a negative impact, they may in some cases exert a positive influence upon those properties around them." There's a number of quite a bit more information in that, and that report has been, or pardon me, that study has been supplied to the board and is available to the public as well. The second thing is impact on traffic. The second criteria, we believe the impact on traffic will be near 0. We have experience with this at our other home. Our plan does allow for plenty of parking. I believe there's either 14 or 16 parking spaces in the back of the property the way it's currently planned, and that's going to make sure to keep parked cars off of Washington Avenue. Another concern we've heard is ambulance traffic, and regarding that, unlike a nursing home, this home is not a medical facility. It's an assisted living home. It's a different animal. So, and we do have experience here as well. And in the past 19 months now that we've cared for residents at our Mimi's house, we've had only one ambulance call that was urgent enough that required the sirens and lights to be on. So that's the history and personal knowledge we have on that. Finally, the third point is, the use we're proposing as a residential assisted living home is consistent with the village plan and the recommended conditional uses. Section 154.21, item B is conditional uses, and subpoint 14 is nursing and convalescent homes with, and as a residential assisted living home, it's actually a lower, less intensive use than either nursing or convalescent home. And with that, we'd just like to open it up to questions. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. I did have one question. It actually tails into what you said, your last point about conformance with the village plan. Honestly, you compared this request to other uses in their zoning code that are allowed in this zone. Did you have a chance to review it and compare it to our village plan, which is a separate document altogether? It's sort of our master plan. It's the village's vision for itself.
I've not done that personally, but I believe Denny has reviewed that.
Yeah, Denny, did you have any comments of the conformity with the village plan?
The only comment I had was that the village plan indicated it to be residential use, and it's a residential use. And then further elaborated in the zoning code to include various conditional uses, which included the nursing home or convalescent home.
Okay. All right. Members of the commission, any other questions for Mr. Hutton or for Mr. Dellinger?
I do have a question. This is Bob Corus. You said there was one ambulance run that had to use sirens. Do you have any information on the total number of emergency runs to your other facility in the last 19 months?
Well, we've probably had an ambulance there, I would say 3 times that were non-emergency. And then that's in addition to the one run that was an emergency where they were using their sirens and lights.
Okay.
And we just opened in September 19th. So that's the total extent of our time open.
So you think that's an accurate number, the 3 plus the 1?
It is an accurate number for and that's an 8-bed home that we have, residential home we have in Loveland. Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I'd like to
Sure. Go ahead, Beth.
I'd just like to comment a little further on the master plan. On page 21, under residential land use, the last paragraph of that section does say other housing choices may become relevant to resident needs such as senior or assisted housing, live-work housing, and the adaptive reuse of commercial or office buildings for housing. So I guess you could say the master plan anticipated that there may be some of these uses, including senior or assisted housing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks for pointing that out, Beth. Other questions for the applicant from the commission?
I have a question. This is Leslie.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering how many staff members will be on duty during like an overnight shift?
So our plan with 16 residents, if we end up going that large, but with 16 residents, we have a 4-to-1 ratio. So on day shift, we would have 4 employees, 4 caregivers. And then in the evenings, we would have 2 caregivers.
And these are certified nurses assistants or RNs, or what level of care will be given?
These are primarily CNAs, as you said, certified nursing assistants, or STNAs, which are state tested nursing assistants.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So Could you imagine, Mr. Hutton, that this facility would provide employment for Glendale residents?
I would certainly hope that would be the case. We would love to have, employees that were, close by for the facility and provide additional employment in addition to the tax base that we'd be adding to the village.
Thank you.
Well, let's keep things moving. That's not to say if we have other questions for the applicant, we can't address them, but let's move on to others who wish to address this application. David, I know you have a list of 5 persons.
Tom, can I ask one question at this
point?
Sure. To be clear, tonight's discussion is only about the conditional use appropriateness, not getting into the design details or any future. That will come at a separate future session should we just vote to approve for special use.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we have an idea of what the design may entail from the plans that were submitted, but you're correct, Tom, that the application today before us is a recommendation on the use itself, not the design per se.
Okay, because in past submittals of mass things like the landmark church, we approved the zoning or the use, residential use, but then the details were negotiated and worked through later. So what we have seen to date is not the final say, just so everybody understands that it's going to be addressing. There will be an opportunity to work through the design process.
Yeah, if approved by council, ultimately by council.
Correct.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's, David, if somebody else. Beth?
Well, so I don't know what. Of course, the design involves demolition, right? As it is now.
Right. They've already indicated the demolition of a big chunk of the existing building. Yeah.
So one of the questions is it feasible without the demolition? It would be simpler to just address the conditional use issue aside from the demolition and design, but I seem to recall that last time we considered both.
Well, I raised it as an issue. I think that they're so intricately intertwined. I don't want to give the impression that if the conditional use permit is approved, that the design and the appropriateness of the design has also been approved.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm there. Okay.
Right. So there's no guarantee that that review would be approved. But at the same time, we've all have to realize that their plans are to call for the demolition of everything except the gymnasium part of this structure.
Okay, but we're not dealing with that tonight.
Correct. And it does. You raised a good question, though, Beth, and I'll direct it to the applicant, and that is, will this project work if you are unable to demolish the rear portions of this structure?
No.
Okay. I thought I knew the answer, but it's your answer, not mine. All right, David, let's move on to the applicant. We're really going to push up to 7 o'clock as it is. So to move on to the others who have registered to speak. And again, David, I'll ask you to keep time, and 3 minutes hopefully is enough time for us to get through everybody. 3 minutes per person, I should say. So David, who's first?
The first one that I had registered was Miss Brenda Daniels, so I will go ahead and promote her now.
Okay. Miss Daniels, you have
Hello?
the floor. Yes, Miss Daniels, we can.
Okay, my name is Brenda Daniels. I'm a resident of Glendale, and I live on Washington Avenue. As a third-generation Glendalian, my mother went to Eckstein Elementary School, and it has a historical meaning to me and much of the community of people that live in that section. We are a kind of a bedroom community, and we see this as an affront. A building, somebody coming in and bringing all these residents and lighting and cars and traffic and employers there is just going to just ruin the aesthetics of our community. I want to say to you as Glendalians, would you want this facility where you live? That's the question. would you be comfortable with it being on your street? And I think not. I am feeling very, very disappointed that you all as a council might even consider turning Eckstein into this type of facility. In fact, we have begged and asked for Eckstein. We had all kind of plans for Eckstein, and every time it was rebuffed until you eventually sold it. Now you want to bring in not a retirement village, but an assisted living facility. And we are adamantly opposed to that as Glendalians. And in that section of Glendale, we feel like we are being put upon and our desires are not being listened to. And we're very unhappy about this situation. Eckstein is historical to us and it should remain as such. And it really should be like a facility where we can go as a community and get together and have computers and do all that kind of stuff. A recreation center and all of that we've been asking for years and years and years, not an assisted living facility. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. David, who's next?
Next, I have Mr. Kevin Parrish.
Mr. Parrish, there he is. Sir, you have the floor. We're trying to keep it to 3 minutes.
I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is the consistency. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
The consistency of this Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation Committee always being blind to the fact of historic significance. At the last meeting, it was addressed that the school itself is a 160-year-old historic structure, and yet you have not even batted an eye and going forward to tear it down. That shows where your mindsets are. Not only that, in the last conditional use meeting with Quinn Chapel, we had a special meeting where where residents were allowed to speak for more than 3 minutes because there were so many of us pushing back. And yet you have changed rules again to not listen to our concerns. That concerns us. You're supposed to be looking out after the history of this community, which was an abolitionist community. This community had courageous white folks fighting against the injustices of slavery and injustices, and yet you have reverted back to that time and showing that there is a double standard here, to the fact that the village of Glendale will not even address the issues of racism and double standards that go here along here. Now, we have for decades been victims of this type of treatment. And yet you guys on this committee and commission are unaware of the significance of this community and its national historic value. You continue to authorize the destruction of national historic artifacts, like filling in the Underground Railroad tunnels, intentional destruction. How can you even say in good conscience that your moral commitment to this committee or this community is being served? We see it all the time. I come upon these public broadcasts so that
you have about 45 seconds.
Is blind to it, that maybe people outside of this community can see exactly what is going on in this village of Glendale. You cannot ride on the backs of the high social standard that the moral committed people in the past rode on. They established this. But right here now, we see a different mindset. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Parrish. David, who's next?
I have Dianna Toran.
Miss Toran.
Yes. Can you hear us?
We can.
Okay. Carlos wants to speak, but first I want to say we have a petition that we shared with the village of the neighbors who are not happy to have this go through.
Yeah, we've seen that. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, and Carlos wants to talk. Go ahead.
You know, it strikes me kind of strange, and whatever they're doing, that then he said he's had this building for 2.5 years and has done nothing to it. And then he all of a sudden he wants to sit there and propose this assisted living program with it. You know, there ought to be some sanctions. There ought to be a big no to the fact that you had it for 2.5 years. You've done nothing to it. They got broken windows. You got messed up doors over there. And then you're going to sit there and try to sell it to the residents for something else. You know, it's one of those things that we don't want in our community. Have some consideration for the people that live here. You know, take that into your fact-finding mission, that you know that there are people that have to look at this every day. I'm catty corner from the building. I see it every day. And I know what this building looks like. I know in my heart what it looks like. I mean, this is a hell of a thing to sit there and look at it, and then to know that somebody's got this building. He's had it for 2.5 years, and he's done absolutely nothing to it other than taking the metal shelving out of it. And now he wants to sit there and partner with this Mimi's house, you know, to turn it into something else that we as residents around here do not want.
And the neighbors on both sides also signed the petition.
You know, there's 66 people on that petition that signed. They said that we don't want it up in here. Find some other place for it. Mimi's house or whatever you may want to call it.
We don't
want it.
The historical part of the building is actually
It's the part
that they want to tear down.
That's the oldest part, is the backside of it. That's the most significant part about this building. The gymnasium, you know, that was an add-on. So we just asking the village council, whatever you want to,
We have about 45 seconds.
The residents, you know, in regards to this, you know, we have to live here. We have to look at this building. We will be the ones that will be subjected to ambulance runs and whatever may happen over there.
And the construction noise, the demolishing noise, the traffic of all those kind of equipment running back and forth initially. And it may not seem like a whole lot to you, but it is to us. We like our quiet neighborhood. We're done.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. David, who's next?
I have an Erica Brenner.
Miss Brenner.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So a quick piece of background. That house is actually the original Verdon homestead. I work for the Verdon company. I'm also married to a descendant of that family. So that is essentially my husband's family homestead. I've always loved that building. I can't imagine that you would want to tear down the original house. That house was built and raised 10 kids in it. The widow donated the house to be a school and to stay a community property at that point. That's what it was meant for. She wanted it to be some kind of center for kids to be educated or to use. So I can't imagine you'd want to tear it down and turn it into some kind of a assisted living. I have nothing against people who want to live in an assisted living, but knowing my husband's grandparents lived at 21 Washington, I've spent all this time on that street back there with them. My kids go to St. Gabe's, so I'm very familiar with Glendale. This is not something that I think fits into that area back there. I'm with these residents. You're disturbing their peace. It should be something they can use as a community, not an assisted living. You look at that street and what's around it. The only noise that comes from there is these kids from St. Gabe's that they hear all day long. But I wouldn't want to have ambulance runs or constant traffic. That's a very quiet street. And so to add to this, all of the extra to me is too much. And you are demolishing a historic structure. You can take off the front part. That's the gymnasium. That was added when Eckstein was made as a school. But the rest of that back there, that is the house. And you can clearly see that when you go through it or you walk around it. It is a house. It's got character to it. I'm sure it can be used for something else. I'm sure there's a better way to use this building than to tear it apart and make it an assisted living. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. David, is there anyone else?
I don't believe so. I know Melissa Smith had emailed. I'm not sure if she's interested in speaking. If anyone else is interested in speaking, please raise your Zoom hand and we'll promote you.
Yeah, I've got the participant or attendees list on my screen as well, and I see no more hands. Let's move on to Planning Commission discussion, and if we see a hand raised, we can circle back. But we don't have unlimited time, so let's open the discussion from members. Well, let me first ask if the applicant or his representative have anything to say in response to what we just heard.
Yeah, this is Mark. I'll just add one point, and that is that the assisted living that we're proposing is a residential use. It's a residential use in Ohio State Code and in most county codes. And in fact, this is not, it is not a commercial use, at least by the state definition, and in most other jurisdictions. So I just wanted to add that.
All right.
That's all.
All right. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. All right. Members of the commission, I see no more hands, so let's begin our discussion.
Well, just as a point of information, there was a facility somewhat like this on Albion that they chose to turn into a conference center, but Bethany had I guess you'd call it an assisted living center there, right across the street from me, in fact. And we never had any problems with that facility, with noise or traffic or anything. And I'm not saying I'm in favor of this. I'm just saying as a point of information, some people are talking like it wouldn't be in any other area but that area. And I live on Albion, and we did have one there, and I don't think any of the neighbors objected to it.
Bob, do you know how many beds that had?
I think it was at least as large as this, if not larger. And the reason they ended up closing it was because they did not have a bathroom for each bedroom. And so there were some law changes or something from what I understand, and they could not get Medicare or Medicaid money at some point because they did not have bathrooms. It's the way I understand it. I'm not an expert on that at all.
All right. Other members of the commission?
Well, I guess another point of clarification about the history of the building. Yes, it's true that it was originally the Verdon home built circa 1885. It was, my understanding was it was purchased by Mr. Birchinall from the Verdons to establish a school for African-American children. It was remodeled in 1916, and I guess that's, well, for a school. And then Stanley Matthews, the architect from the Glendale architect, designed and built the gymnasium addition on the front in 1928. And I think the 1928 gymnasium is actually a very significant part of the building. In terms of a conditional use, it seems that the proposal meets at least two of the criteria, and that is conformance with the village plan, and also that it would not create undue traffic impact. Despite what we've heard, none of these residents would drive. The staff there would be minimal, and there would be occasional visitors, but it doesn't sound like it would generate much traffic. So, the major concern is the impact on the neighborhood and how it will affect local residents. In terms of construction noise or noise from demolition, if the building were rehabilitated there would also be construction noise. So in either situation, whether it was demolition or rehabilitation, there would be construction noise. And the building has been vacant for at least 11 years and continues to deteriorate. And a vacant and blighted and deteriorated building also has a very negative impact on a neighborhood. I would like to hear a little more from the architect or the owner about what other uses he's considered, and if there is any other use that would meet the zoning code that the building could be used for. And just one other comment about the desire to have the building as a community facility. I understand that, but I've also heard we do have a community center, and that is the Harry Whiting Brown Community Center. And I understand it's having financial problems. So you cannot preserve a building, no matter what you would like it to be, unless it is economically feasible. You just can't. So that's what?
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, well, no, I mean, I'm inviting Denny to speak. And so we're at the topic of economic viability.
That's
So go ahead.
you're saying everything I would want to say better than I could say it. Thank you. A little bit about the history. When I bought it, my original intention was to try to do some sort of a community arts center on a for-profit basis, based on the model of the Art Barn in Marymount, which is a going concern at the time, at least. Also had event space that they leased, and it was in actually a more densely populated area of Marymount in a historical building that they were able to renovate. And I had plenty of plans of various ways to do that. I also applied for historic tax credits, but withdrew the application because I really wasn't prepared. I didn't have my whole act together, and I just was never able to make that successful. And I kind of got the feeling that what I had envisioned as a potential event center would not be welcomed in the neighborhood because it would generate, hopefully, more traffic. And then somebody suggested I consider a residential use and divide it up into several apartments. And obviously it's a single family zone. So in spite of my skepticism, I spent some time generating some plans that I thought were viable. And I had some conversations and got no feeling at all that I would get any support for that sort of proposal on that site. And I actually put the property up for sale, y'all know. Around the first of the year, I recently took it off the market after over 60 showings and no offers. And about a couple months or so ago, I was looking at the zoning code a little more carefully and studying some more. I hadn't even noticed the conditional use for the convalescent home or nursing home. And when I saw that, I immediately thought of my friends Janet and Mark and their facility in Loveland. So we got to talking, and I did a little more confirming with Wally at the time that it was a permitted conditional use, or would likely be accepted as a permitted conditional use. And so we developed some plans, and we're trying to move through your process and get this conditional use approval, and then develop the plans some more for presentation for historic review. And I think we have a plan that is economic. Well, I know it's economically viable, but it does require a single level facility, and the condition of the existing building is is really, really in sad shape. It's amazing that it's not deteriorated more than it is, but frankly, it's just not economically feasible or practical to try to do this. In fact, I originally worked very hard on a very clever plan to use the existing building with the 5-stop elevator. And then I thought, this is ridiculous. And it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we came to this plan, which we think is viable, and we want to pursue it and hope we receive approval for it. And I know people don't like change, but that's kind of my business, I'm afraid.
All right, Beth, does that answer your question?
Yes, and I guess the question is there any other viable use for this building that would be more acceptable to the neighborhood that is economically feasible? I don't think it will ever be a school again. The school board sold the building because they had no use for it. So I guess that's to Denny. I mean, is there any other?
Well, it's a single family zone, so there may be other conditional uses there. I don't know that a charter school of some sort would be out of the question. But I know some folks in that business, and I've talked to them about it, and they didn't have any interest. And single family house or a single family house building site.
I went through it at least a decade ago and was considering purchasing it before the village purchased it, actually. And my estimate was that it would take $500,000 to $700,000 to put that place back into reasonable condition. And I just don't think it's economically viable. That's why I just didn't even pursue it.
All right, thanks, Bob. Others on the commission? Go ahead, Beth.
Well, just a little bit more. I am personally acquainted with Denny Dellinger because he is an architect based in over the Rhine, and so we're both in the field of historic preservation. And I believe that that it would be helpful for Denny to talk more about the historic rehabilitation projects that he has been involved in the past. And you know, it's my impression that if he could save the building, he would. So would you like to respond to that?
Let me preface it by saying we do have limited time. We're down to 11 minutes now before council takes over this bandwidth. I don't know Mr. Dellinger, but I sense what you just said, Beth, that he's well versed in historic preservation and probably has a whole portfolio of historic projects and very sensitive historical conservation and preservation. Mr. Dellinger, if you disagree with that summation, please jump in.
Well, I would say in a strict sense of the definition of restoration, I really haven't done a lot of restoration. My work has been more adaptive reuse or renovation or that sort of thing, often involving older buildings in various states of repair or disrepair. So what I'm saying is my experience has been about bringing dead buildings back to life rather than preserving a monument.
Yeah. Well, we could probably list a half a dozen or a dozen examples in the village. I mean, the village office alone on the village square used to be a stable. Now it's village offices. So, you know, we couldn't expect it to be stables into the future. So it was
probably really disappointed a lot of horses.
Not one. So let me ask if there's other members of the commission who wanted to discuss. We do have limited time, and I see 3 hands are raised. Now, of course, those people have already had a chance to speak, but again, in the interest of time, I want to make sure everybody else has a voice. All right. Seeing no discussion, David, could we open up the floor to those 3 hands and no more for 1 minute, and then we'll move on to our vote and our recommendation. David,
okay. Is there a particular order?
Miss Brenner's top of my list. It's probably alphabetical. Let's take her first. Ms. Brenner, you have a minute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I've lost my whole train of thought. I apologize, but I understand the whole idea of the economics and the feasibility of trying to change this building around and do whatever. But everything that I love about Glendale and the reason that we spend so much time there and our kids are down there all at school and everything is because of the historic preservation and the way that it looks. And that's why a majority of my friends live there. And if we had the ability to live there, we would, but we don't. But I can't see why you have to tear the original part of this house down. It should stay. You've got to find some way to make this stay and be part of it. Your whole purpose is to preserve history, yet you're letting this gentleman come in and tear that history down. And you've done a great job with preserving everything else through the village. Why not this? For all of the reasons, for the family history, for the school, for these people who want it to stay that way, you've got to try to find a way to preserve it instead of piecemealing it apart.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
David, next on my list is Dianna Toran. If you could promote, I think she's also with Carlos. Ms. Toran?
Hi. Okay, so we did have a plan to use it for Cultural Arts Center. There were plans, there were things a long time ago, and we jumped through hoops trying to get it done. And we kept getting no. And I want to go to the other thing that was said about the demolition. The demolition is a lot noisier than fixing it up. You're tearing a building down that shouldn't be torn down in the first place, but the demolition alone will be horrible. And then rebuilding it will be horrible as well, as far as noise around here. And it's not going to be an overnight job. As far as people parking, when COVID goes away, I'm sure that there's going to be more people coming to visit their loved ones there. So there is going to be more traffic. And again, we don't want it. Our neighbors, none of them want it.
So you're telling us that a building that you sit there and said that was built in 1865 is not a historical building
and can just be torn down.
That is unbelievable. That y'all would
Not what I said.
Something like this.
Your time has expired. All right, let's move on. Last hand is Brenda Daniels. Ms. Daniels, we have a minute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think what the committee doesn't get is that for the African American community in that section, Eckstein School means everything, because it was the only way our relatives could be educated. We have fought and tried to get that building, and Glendale, you wouldn't give it to us. Kasi made all kind of plans and presented things and had everything in place. And every time we had a plan, it was thwarted. You should never tear down such a historical building because it has sentimental values and it also is historical. You can't tear down a historical building. I mean, you're making us jump through hoops to get sidewalks or to get driveways or to get windows and all of that.
Your time has expired.
Everything approved. You just tear down Eckstein School.
All right, thank you, Ms. Daniels. Thank you, Ms. Daniels. We are at the end of the public hearing. We need a motion by way of a recommendation to council on whether to recommend approval or denial of the conditional use permit. Members of the commission.
Mr. Chairman, can we postpone for another month?
Well, we would have to get approval of the applicant in order to do that. The code reads that we have 45 days, I think, to make a recommendation, 30 days, excuse me. And that was already extended till today. So if the applicant is willing to allow us till June the 7th, I think is our next meeting, we can do that.
Well, let me explain why I'm asking. And that is because I believe that the people involved in Mimi's house are reputable, caring, good people. I do understand this represents a change in the neighborhood, and I sense there's some well, people are unhappy and afraid and uncomfortable with what the impact might be. And I wonder if it would be helpful to arrange for a visit of people in the neighborhood to Mimi's house to see what it's like.
Mr. Dellinger or Mr. Hutton, I don't know who speaks for the group, but would you be willing to postpone our action for?
That's a Mark Hutton question.
I guess I'll address both. This is Mark Hutton. As far as a visit to Mimi's house, because of our COVID restraints and our population of our residents that are very vulnerable, we would not have anyone in the home. We'd be very happy to host a meeting at the home and on the back deck, and we can look through all the giant plate glass windows and visit the house. I'd be delighted to, host anyone there to do that.
We could do a virtual tour.
We could do a virtual tour while you're on site with Janet, walking through the house with camera. We do have to protect our residents though, so that's of the utmost priority. And
and our visitation policy is based on the governor's recommendations for assisted living at this time.
Right, we have to, do what the governor says. But yeah, I'd be willing to do that, and I'd be willing to give the council the time or the commission the time to arrange that with us and do that.
All right, I appreciate that, and I think that will go a long way in helping to educate everybody, commission members, and
also do a video tour of the existing Eckstein building that people could then go online and look at. What do you think of that? I think people might be surprised at the condition that it's in.
I like that idea. I mean, it's private property, so it's up to them. But my sense is that the outside of the building gives enough of the sense of the inside. But at the same time, I think it'd be helpful. Mr. Hutton, would that be good?
Yeah, we could probably arrange that. We've already posted, videos and pictures of both the interior of the building, as well as of Mimi's house, and even videos of the inside of Mimi's house. So, and that's been made public to everyone. But yeah, we can probably add a video of the interior, which I don't think we have, of the current property at 42 Washington, the Eckstein School, and add that to the drive for everyone. And I think we can do that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll work with you, Mr. Hutton, Mr. Dellinger, and our administrator, Mr. Lumsden, on organizing whatever tour or whatever video conferencing is most appropriate, and the members of the community, of course. I didn't mean to leave anybody out. I
would also add that members of the community are certainly welcome to the Mimi's tour. Absolutely.
Sure. 7 o'clock, almost 7:01. So I think we have a consensus to defer action. If there's a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Did we get acceptance by the applicants?
We did. Well, at least from Mr.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, you're the applicant. We have negative 1 minute to wrap things up.
Well, we can continue, but I mean, I don't understand what more you think is going to happen in the next month except keeping us from moving forward.
Well, I can't answer that without the information that might be garnered by the tour and by the video tour.
Well,
there was
again, we're talking about the conditional use.
Yeah.
There will be certainly meetings to follow where we'll talk in very detail about the design and we'll visit the site if people want to. But I don't see what that has to do with the approval of the conditional use.
Personally, I'll put myself out there and say, I believe it meets the conditions of the conditional use. And I'm not saying that I would vote further to, you know, for demolition or for the project to go forward. I don't know yet, but I do believe it meets the conditions of conditional use.
All right,
Well,
well,
we did.
I do too.
Did we have a motion on the floor? I thought we did.
Well,
Was
yeah.
there a second, Becky?
I have Beth's motion, and
Yes.
I thought somebody seconded, but I don't know who it was.
Dan did. Dan. that's-
Okay.
All right. Well, we actually have a motion and a second to defer action to next month. We did have at least begrudging acceptance of the deferral of the applicant. Before we vote, I suppose it's in order to ask if the person who made the motion and the second are withdrawing that. Otherwise, I think the motion stands and we would vote and then continue.
Well, the reason why I made the motion to defer is because I think it would be helpful for people to see Mimi's house in a residential neighborhood, not unlike Glendale, and how it fits in with that neighborhood. And that was my thinking.
I agree with the continuance. I mean, this is obviously a matter of utmost importance to the whole community. So 2 months or 3 months review might feel like a long time, but in the scope of things, it's not much. So my preference is to move forward on the motion to defer, reorganize whatever meetings are appropriate, and revisit this next month. So Beth, if your motion stands, let's
Yes.
take a vote. All right, we have a motion, a second to defer action. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries with one nay vote. We will see everybody next month. And again, once again, we'll work with the applicant, the operator of Mimi's house, through David Lumsden to organize whatever tour is appropriate.
Move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everyone.